Your Holiness, President Duderstadt, contributors to the Wallenberg Endowment, honored guests, and friends of the University of Michigan. My name is Elaine Didier, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the Wallenberg Endowment Committee and the Rackham School of Graduate Studies, which oversees the Wallenberg Endowment. This is the 4th annual Wallenberg Lecture to be presented here at the University of Michigan. Wallenberg Endowment was created in 1985 through the tireless energy and effort of individuals committed to recognize and honor the memory and contributions of Raoul Wallenberg. Individuals selected to receive the Wallenberg Medal and present the lecture are noted for their outstanding humanitarianism, their heroism, courage, integrity, pursuit of human rights, and resistance of oppression. As noted in your program, previous recipients of this prestigious award have included Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor, Jan Karski, a courier for the Polish underground during World War II, Helen Sussman, who was a longtime South African legislator and crusader against apartheid. This evening, we are extremely honored to have with us His Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet. Members of the University, members of the university community and the Wallenberg Selection Committee are delighted to have an audience of this magnitude with us this evening to share in this extraordinary event. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Professor Irene Butter of the School of Public Health. She is not only an active member of both the Wallenberg Endowment and Selection Committees, but was a vital force in the initial effort to establish the Wallenberg Lecture and Medal. Professor Butter.
Good evening. The Dalai Lama, President Duderstadt, Wallenberg donors, and friends. Welcome to all of you. In addition to those of you who have attended previous Wallenberg lectures, I want to welcome everyone here today for this extraordinary occasion of the visit of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who is the spiritual and secular leader of the people of Tibet. Having personally experienced foreign occupation and persecution during the Holocaust, I feel a special appreciation for those who have dedicated their lives to end suffering in the world. And thus, it is a very special privilege for me to be here today. In considering the two heroes we are about to honor, I have been wondering what constitutes a hero. Is there only one type of hero? And are all heroes the same? Is heroism equivalent to notoriety and fame? In today's climate, one might easily get that impression. For example, this year, Steven Spielberg made us aware of Oskar Schindler as one type of hero, and one would not deny that Schindler performed acts of heroism. But were it not for an Academy Award-winning movie, Schindler would have remained a virtual unknown. But that is the fate of most heroes. They act out of a sense of personal responsibility and integrity without any thought of risks, fame, or personal advantage. And often they do so quietly and behind the scenes. In awarding the Wallenberg Medal, we hope to honor all those who have acted heroically, whether famous or anonymous, thereby inspiring us all to act out of courage and conviction. Today, we honor the 14th Dalai Lama and Raoul Wallenberg, whose leadership and visions are along parallel lines. And to my mind, they represent the type of heroism that is of highest magnitude. They are champions of human rights, liberty, truth, and justice for all. They are the embodiments of quiet courage and nonviolent ways. And they both stood for their beliefs with persistence and compassion. One part of what brings us here today is to pay tribute, validate, and reaffirm Raoul Wallenberg for his courageous acts and heroic leadership during World War II. Because Wallenberg is one of the most extraordinary alumni of this university, and because of a lasting need for creative leadership and positive role models for our youth today, the University of Michigan established an enduring vehicle for celebrating and emulating Wallenberg's remarkable deeds. This vehicle includes 3 elements. First, a medal awarded to a humanitarian of international stature whose work reflects the spirit and the essence of the Wallenberg legacy. Second, a lecture delivered by the medalist. And third, a remembrance of the Wallenberg story as a bridge to the medalist whose own humanitarian contributions are receiving recognition. We start with part 3, the Wallenberg story. Raoul Wallenberg was born in 1912 into one of Sweden's most highly placed families, whose members included diplomats, bankers, bishops, artists, and professors. For valid reasons, the Wallenberg's relatives chose the University of Michigan as the most suitable of American universities for Raoul's advanced education. From 1931 to 1935, he studied on this campus, where he completed an undergraduate degree in architecture, which he earned with honors. After graduation, Wallenberg returned to Sweden, and he embarked on a career in banking and finance, which led him to work in different parts of the world in the late 1930s, such as South Africa, Israel, and various European countries. The first exposure to Nazi atrocities which were committed to the Jews took place in Haifa, where while employment of a bank, he witnessed the arrival of large groups of Jewish refugees who were forced to leave their native countries. A few years later, he became the junior partner of a Hungarian Jew in a European trading company. His new position required frequent travel throughout Europe, and in this way, again, he encountered many uprooted Jewish families. These wartime experiences combined with his citizenship of a neutral country, Sweden, his family background, and other personal attributes, qualified Wallenberg to be appointed as a Swedish diplomat. And in 1944, he was given a special assignment. This was to protect from execution the only substantial Jewish population still alive in Europe, the Jews in Budapest. During a brief 6 months, Wallenberg made his mark on history. Here he rescued tens of thousands of Jews from Nazi execution with boldness, defiance, persistence, and enormous courage. Clearly, he embraced his mission with utmost dedication and with vigor. The tactics he used, including false protective passports called Schutzpässe, and the safe houses, which were shelters for Jews that were declared Swedish property, were innovative and daring. Moreover, Wallenberg is said to have performed his rescue operation almost single-handedly, thus providing a supreme example that no matter how formidable the odds, one person can make a difference. What Wallenberg demonstrated almost 50 years ago is every bit as applicable to our world today. One person can make a difference in the struggle for a better world. And this is why the Wallenberg story is celebrated and perpetuated on this campus each year. It symbolizes defiance in exposing tyranny, fortitude in defense of justice and human dignity, courage in the midst of a world which was trembling in fear, and steadfastness when virtually everyone was apathetic and silent. It gives us gratification to think that during Wallenberg's formative undergraduate years, this university helped to shape the foundation for the monumental acts which followed. And thus, our celebration of Wallenberg's heroism on this campus is intended as a lasting inspiration to each of us that we too can be that one person who makes a difference in building a better world. Thank you. I would like to now introduce President Duderstadt, who will introduce His Holiness the Dalai Lama and present the Wallenberg Medal.
Good evening. Tonight we're here to honor an individual who is working to ensure that the 21st century will be a time of peace and justice. A man who, in the face of continued evil in places like Gorazde and indifference toward the situation in his homeland of Tibet, believes that humanity can learn from past experience, that we can transcend and overcome evil if we will only use our talents and sacrifice for others. Tenzin Gyatso, Holiness, the 14th Dalai Lama, is the spiritual and secular leader of the 6 million Tibetan people. Born in the village of Daksay in northeastern Tibet, he was recognized at the age of 2, in accordance with Tibetan tradition, as the reincarnation of his predecessor, the 13th Dalai Lama, and thus an incarnation of the Bodhisattva of compassion. The Dalai Lama began his education at the age of 6 and completed the doctorate of Buddhist philosophy when he was 25. I should note that he passed his final examination, conducted before 20,000 monk scholars, with honors. In 1950, at the age of 15, His Holiness was called upon to assume full political responsibility as the head of state when Tibet was threatened by the might of China. In 1954, he went to Beijing to hold peace talks with Mao Zedong, Zhou Enlai, and Deng Xiaoping. His efforts to bring about a peaceful solution to the Sino-Tibetan problem were thwarted by Beijing's policies in eastern Tibet. The resistance movement against China spread throughout Tibet, and in 1959, the Tibetan capital of Lhasa exploded with massive demonstrations. By the time China crushed the uprising, more than 87,000 Tibetans had perished in the Lhasa region area. His Holiness escaped to India, where he was given political asylum. Some 80,000 Tibetan refugees at the time managed to follow the Dalai Lama into exile. Today, there are more than 120,000 Tibetan refugees living in India, Nepal, Bhutan, and in the West. Since 1960, His Holiness has resided in Dharamsala, a small town in northern India known as Little Lhasa, which has become the seat of the Tibetan government in exile. Meanwhile, in Tibet, religious persecution, violations of human rights, and the wholesale destruction of religious and historic buildings has continued. 1.2 million Tibetans have lost their lives, over 1/6 of the population, as a result of Chinese occupation. The Dalai Lama has worked tirelessly to promote the restoration of rights and the independence of the Tibetan people while preserving the Tibetan culture. Although he describes himself as a simple Buddhist monk, no more, no less, he is the leader of the Tibetan government in exile, the spiritual leader of millions of Buddhists around the world, one of the most important Buddhist thinkers of this century, and an internationally honored proponent of peace and human rights. In 1989, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Peace. Now tonight, we have the opportunity to honor His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and in doing so, we also honor the memory and the humanitarians of old Wallenberg. But let us use this occasion as well to recommit ourselves to the pursuit of human rights. After all, a university is a place of learning with a mission of passing the torch of human knowledge and wisdom from one generation to another. Let us allow the Dalai Lama's efforts to be a lesson to each of us, so that we never forget the fact that in some part of the world, at this moment in time, someone is suffering, their spirit broken, their dignity lost. Your Holiness, you inspire so many of us all over the world. On behalf of the Wallenberg Endowment and the University of Michigan community, it is my great privilege and honor to present you with the Raoul Wallenberg Medal.
It's a great honor and also a pleasure for me to have this opportunity today to be with you.
And Hagoranda today, those the Wallenberg and the transfer to stretch a dengue, the Chagato Suranabati, a Shakazola, honor Shachunga, and Shakabuchum moving to Shishu.
I would especially like to express my deep appreciation for awarding me this Medal of Raoul Wallenberg, because it means so much to me, and also it made me feel very moved.
And other terms of the Zamuli Digangi, me, Ningdo Chen, Shambang Hassam Yoting, Monaraji, Pamba Dasham Dungan to the Tagi, Mikdu Sambuchi, Mutunipa, Bebeagi, and Gobet and Dalia, and those terms of transfer. Chagachi, Nami Society, Manatanig, Gyatso.
I'm very impressed, and also I would like to express my admiration for the university and the committee, Wallenberg Committee, in instituting this tradition of awarding medals to individuals in order to keep the memory of Raoul Wallenberg fresh in people's mind, and also to set in the minds of our young generation the role model which Raoul Wallenberg's life has set for us.
And Wallenberg, Kiana Qualiata, the under Hasore, together motor, and Koran Star, and Yamusha University to Sada Sunshine Abati, Naresem Lepege, Tatunjik, the Simgu, take your tips to Strong.
The story of Raoul Wallenberg, which was told by Professor Butter in her introductory address, is fresh in our mind, and it has also reaffirmed my admiration in him.
Now I will try to speak my broken English. Occasionally I have to relying on my translator in order to express fully. My English is vocabulary limited, and also I think they will speak very, very broken. So I would like to give you some kind of a warning. Because of the Dalai Lama's very poor English, so you might get when I use some word, perhaps there is a possibility. I'm using that particular word in certain different meaning. You might get a different meaning. So there is such a danger is there. So please careful. Now I really feel the inhuman mind, a true human mind, reminds these as some individual human being in the past done some really marvelous or some really great work, great beneficial work, right?
No, noble work.
Noble work. That is, I feel, extremely important. Firstly, this is such as stories as they give us, I think, some kind of the inspiration, and also give us the way, meaningful or useful way, noble way. And then secondly, I feel I often come across some people, they believe our future is something really hopeless, and so that's kind of the frustration or a little bit the depression, discouraged attitude. This is very dangerous. So after all, we everyone the happier world. That is our aim. And therefore, in order to develop, or in order to have the better world, happier world, the effort must come from the present human generation. If we lost hope, right, and they neglect effort, then who will build better world? Nobody. Mission cannot do that. We human beings ourselves must make effort, constant effort, with self-confidence and with hope. So for such, therefore, I think some kind of method or way to open our mind, our potential. Realize that?
Activate our potential.
So therefore, this kind of your practice is, I really feel very, very useful. Then some time ago, when I was in Washington, I had the opportunity to visit the Holocaust Museum. At that time, there is a museum. The arrangement is such that the negative, the suffering, the immeasurable, unthinkable, the sufferings, also is presented very clearly. Then one corner is a few human individuals' picture, who including the Wallenberg, who helped for many humanities. These pictures also there. So at one place, give you I think the picture of humanity if human being let under negative emotion and utilize, I think, the fullest, all human atrocities, these things. So how much disaster. That picture there, at the same time, again, same human being, same humanity. So they utilize human positive potential, the inner strength, with compassion. How much humanity can do, achieve. So therefore, it is very important. We must realize our own positive potential. One of my basic fundamental belief is basic human nature is gentleness, is positive. The reason I believe I think very existence of humanity or human life very much connected with human affection. Without a human affection, human being cannot survive properly. So therefore, the very basis of human existence is human affection. And the very nature of this body is much closer with the human affection, right?
No.
Or that of human positive mind.
A wholesome state of mind.
Now, for example, our mind calm, less sort of ups and downs, then our body function remain more normal. If our mind become more agitative, more hatred, if our mind is getting more hatred feeling or these things, then is that very harmful for this body, for health. So this shows that our body sugun nadangi kora kasure chamje chilone chamje namju chumbayina sugute pabazodo mase 랑이게 세고 나올이야 참지 사바 그제 숙체 준비 저기 류기 되되니야 자 팽귀 됩니다. 그래서 그래서 상황인데 전에 류비 측주가 나다 거라 지금 참절이야 자 참주 거고야 돼. 참지 처에 류지 입에서 또.
If we examine carefully, we will find that the very constitution of our human body seems to be much closer to the wholesome states of mind, such as affection, human affection. Not only that, it is more suited to receiving and appreciating affection coming from others, but also expression of affection and wholesome states of thought and emotion from oneself also seem to be much more suited to a more healthy body.
So, the basic human nature is, I believe, is gentleness. Because of these reasons. Of course, this does not mean the in human mind, as a nature, there are other negative, as a day, forces. Of course, also there, but the dominant force in our mind is human affection. So, you see. The sort of conviction or self-confidence, you see, we have great potential to make good things, right? To do good things. Then you see, when I think about these past events, it seems human nature. See, as a human nature, when you see things become okay, then sometimes you see the inner deep strength sometimes may not come very active. So you see, we take for granted things. So you see, go like that way. But when we confront difficult, very desperate situation, then if you see if our attitude at that moment, you see, goes right direction, then this inner strength comes and become active. The other danger is, under such circumstances, if you see our mental attitude goes wrong direction, then lose hope and depressed, things like that. So now today, I think world as a whole, I think now we are entering 21st century. This century, the 20th century, perhaps I think whole entire human history, I think this century this century is, I think, one of the, great test period of human being. Look, you see, in this century, I think we experimented, you see, many things. So as a result, now seems, you see, sometimes many people, you see, feel, the way of life or the thing that been 로당으로디 남주다 대치 자신 인상 전대배 로당으로디 다 신에 때 토바쳐 와서 대 결심 쳐 와서 지는 리도 그래서 지다 남주변의 소사이티 로당 다시 반정 로당 이내리 미치 kumshi 그런 로당 이내리 멍구지 다 남주가 자신이 다디 디디 참 전대배디 다 되게서 신의 지 변의 이콜로지케시 쉐인 거야래 지금 다가는 신이 변의 지 가서 그래 변아 타지 누버디 타지 통인 거 같은데 내수고 안에 신의 직접시 과를 갈래요.
As the 20th century is drawing to close, we are now entering a new stage in human history where we are beginning to be compelled to rethink our very pattern of existence. A lot of the things that we take for granted, for example, like our economic system, our international relations, our political systems, and so on, where we feel that it's okay. There might be some problems here and there, but basically things are going okay. That type of sort of complacency needs to be really challenged and questioned, because if we look at in areas like ecology and also the limitation of world resources, which are beginning to be appreciated, through these facts, we now have come to a point where we need to rethink many of the assumptions underlying our modern pattern of existence.
So I mean, you see, we are passing through a certain stage that many people now getting some kind of doubt whether you see they are the usual the pattern.
Our current pattern of existence
is really the right one or not. So this sometimes creates some kind of inner sort of sense of
instability. No.
So you see, it is where I think is passing through some critical period. So this one way I believe very useful, as I mentioned earlier. You see, when we are confronting some difficult period, challenge, then that is the time to open human mind. And once our mind is open and look very seriously about the thing, the problem, without losing courage, without losing self-confidence, we have ability to find ways and means to overcome these problems. That is quite certain. So therefore, you see, there is, I think, the real hope. Now, because of the circumstances, now our inner strength or inner, I think, deeper awareness may come out and utilize fully so that our next century can be, I think, more, peaceful, more harmonious, more friendly. So with such a conviction, then make constant effort. That's very important. So you see, learning from these past as a great men's experiences, you see, I think they getting more self-confidence and make constant effort with courage. Now here, and particularly here, is this famous university. I was told, you see, here in this place, you see, the many sort of, I think, new initiative or new sort of thing, ideas, new thoughts. So they usually, you see, come and become active. So this is very, very, wonderful and very important. So the younger people, our younger generation, here mainly you see, the students, you see, you are the people who really, you see, they make change world or future. So here, one thing I would like to make clear is sometimes I got the impression whether university or school or in these places, the effort or attention towards education is of course there, enough, adequate. But the other side, now I think I'm going to explain more detail. Now, education or knowledge is a kind of instrument. Whether that instrument utilized properly or constructively or negative way, much depend on basic human, whether we call spiritual or basic human, that human self. So sometimes education may utilize wrong direction. As a result, you see, that become destructive. So knowledge alone, there is no guarantee. So the guarantee, the old knowledge become constructive is the other side of human hesitate, human self.
Heart.
Usually I call human feeling. When the education, whether in the field of education, whether in the field of economy, or in politics, or religion, or science, in everywhere, with human feeling, that means with human affection, then all these human activities can be constructive. If these, you see, different activities isolated, or without human affection, without human, you see, the proper motivation, then even religion also become destructive. So therefore, in the education center, it seems not
Not enough.
the so the shenyung thalia sabso yisab cheba da yisab da tugur chebe chöji chujo de paje madang sabshi.
Sometimes I feel that in various educational institutions, perhaps not enough attention is being paid to the promotion and development and enhancement of the basic human qualities and the qualities of the heart, comparable to the attention that is paid to the development of the education.
I have the impression, the reason is, in the past, the moral side, now, for example, you say compassion or sense of responsibility, these, you see, usually, you see, they come from religious side. That society na lo ya kale chöjog thong ro cha mebe khudula ani ngar ben chöjog thone drusha gi langen di any tusho document was on the
Perhaps I feel that the situation seems to be like the following, that in the past, the development and promotions of spiritual qualities like love, compassion, and sense of responsibility and so on, these moral values are considered the special province of religion and religious development. And as time passed and society became more secularized and the influence of religion in society became diminishing, more decreased, then perhaps the development of these moral qualities are also being neglected at the same time.
So now here, when I say moral ethics and also spirituality, I usually make two levels. Distinction, two levels. One level, that's the compassion or love, forgiveness, with some belief, religious faith. That's one way, one level. Another level, that is fundamental. Whether the believer or non-believer, as I mentioned before, right from the beginning of our life, human birth, from the first day of human birth, you see, we already, I think, experienced the value of human affection. You see, since from the first day, you see, we survived because of mother or someone else's affection. Under that, we survived. Now, for example, here I think it's quite a simple, you see, example or reason. The first day of birth, after birth, right? After birth, you see, the child's side, you see, with very strong feeling, closeness feeling towards the person who are taking care. With that feeling, you see, they're sucking the mother's milk. Mother or someone else's milk. Then the mother's side, or the person who are feeding, their side also, with very strong affectionate feeling towards the child. For example, mother, you see, then milk comes smoothly. So the milk I consider as a symbol of human affection. So without that, we cannot survive. So that's how our life developed.
Began.
Then till our death, the last day, our death. No, I have no time to go very detailed, but if we look, from the first day till our death, human affection is the key role. So therefore, the sense of appreciation of affection, and also the affection's effect on our body. You see, these, right from the beginning, our life, that's there. So that is the basic spirituality, right? Or basic moral ethics. So religion comes later. When we're born, you see, sometimes I feel when we're born without religion, we are free from religion. But at that time, we are not free from human affection. Without human affection, we cannot survive. And from that viewpoint, the real person who introduced us the value of human affection is our mother, not our Lama, not our teacher. You see, Lama's teachers come later, many years after. So therefore, you see, the basic spirituality, or the basic, I think the moral things, based on that. So therefore, when we make distinction, these two levels, then it becomes easier. See, there are certain people who accept religious value and who like religion, very good. You see, follow religious tradition, and meantime, you see, strengthen all these basic human good quality through religious method. Very good. But if someone who do not, who cannot develop faith easily, want to carry more investigation, very good. You see, no need, except no need.
For someone who have deep reluctance to subscribe to any religious beliefs, that's fine. There's no need to believe.
So you see, no hurry to accept religion. You see, go slowly. So therefore, you see, they remain as an atheist. Meantime, there is the moral things there. So sometimes, you see, people, when we talk about compassion and love and forgiveness, then you see people feel, oh, these are something religious matter. This is not the case. I also feel like this nation, great nation, there are a lot of the moral crisis. So these, I think, not due to lack of education, not due to lack of the material facility. Of course, some cases, I think, due to the economic difficulties, some crimes also happen. But many other type of crisis, not solely due to lack of money or facility. So it become quite clear, the sort of the inner mental spiritual strength lacking. As a result, lack of self-discipline. So then under such circumstances, when gun is available, then all sorts of crimes, can happen easily. So therefore, control, self-discipline, kind of self-discipline, on the basis of volunteer self-discipline is very crucial. How it comes? The basic human good qualities. With these good qualities there, then naturally, what is compassion? Compassion means sense of concern of others' right. And you see the closeness feeling towards other. That is compassion. So they realize that others also just like myself, who want happiness, who do not want suffering, and also have the right, same right to overcome suffering. Realize that nature or that situation, then develop some concern, or develop some, also the feeling of closeness. You see, that is the genuine compassion. So therefore, you see, that kind of mental attitude, there are also this sense of respect, sense of, the sense of responsibility also there. So that is genuine compassion. So that kind of genuine compassion is there. Then you see, other corner of our mind is a desire, right? No. I think negative desire or greed or hatred or things like that. You see, from certain corner of our mind, you see, with these motivation, you see, you want to do something to exploit or to harming on other, then immediately realize, the others, just like myself, do not want suffering, do not want harm, do not want hurt. If I do this, it will harm them. So, not good. So then the self-discipline, you see, automatically come. Whether there is police or not, you see, some kind of inner discipline is there. So that is the basis of, you see, the development of the happier and more calm society, right? Peaceful society. So these, you see, the events clearly demonstrated still something we are lacking. Now that's, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the basic spiritual or the moral thing, which mainly, as I mentioned, you see, the human affection. These are, I think, very, very key thing. So while you are acquiring information, knowledge, please take care about self, about heart or self. Be a nice person, educated, meantime, must be a nice person, compassionate person. So that you yourself be a much more happier person, and then you will have happier family, and through that way, you see, we can build happier human society. So that's the way. That's the only alternative. So if we neglect about this side, hoping entirely on money, we cannot achieve such happy society. So therefore, you see, since you see this, like this kind of university, I think they're very, very, very important as a part of the community, and very much, I think, as a responsibility, right? Responsibility lying about future, right? So therefore, you see, I want to express these things. It's a combination, the brain and good heart. This must go together. So, now, like, you know, you already, you see, some I think the work already started in this country, you see, the reducing guns. That's, I think, very good, you see, step. Now think, you see, global level. I always feel, and also in many occasions I always express, ultimately, one of our goal is the whole world should be demilitarized. That is very important. Of course, it's a step by step. And then, then also I feel among more than 5 billion of human beings, some really, stupid or mischievous people, mischievous group of people always happen. So therefore, in order to counter them, if necessary, we can create a certain force, which not belong to individual nation, but like you see, United Nations already involved many forces now using. So similarly, some kind of the collective forces on the basis of regional first, perhaps, then eventually international sort of forces, wherever some is really necessary using force, then can you utilize. So the individual nation should be completely demilitarized. Now, like Costa Rica, that small country, they more than 40 years, they remain as demilitarized. So as a result, their education standard and their living standard, they compare with their neighbor countries. The Costa Rica situation is much better. So therefore, if we eventually reach some kind of demilitarization on global level, I think the damage about environment also can reduce. Then I think the thousands innocent people killed, that will not happen. That without a weapon, without the military establishment, there will be no dictatorship, authoritarian regime. Authoritarian regime comes powerful military forces. So therefore, and then without such the system, or without such the organization, and then human rights violation will be lessened. And then here, there's sometimes I jokingly telling people, those scientists who are working in military establishment, they are brilliant brain using essentially destructive field. So since they are brilliant brain, instead of using in the field of destructive, now in constructive way, so they should pay more, isn't it? If they got $10,000 in present field, they should get double, because now their research work really become constructive, isn't it? So I usually describe inner disarmament and external disarmament. These two things should go together. That's, I think, if we make effort on this line, then our future is quite sure will be much brighter. Now, another thing, now economy problem. Now, for example, obviously, now the big gap, Southern and Northern, this is very, very serious matter. There's many politicians or many government or many thinkers from this area, from underdeveloped countries, usually have some, the critical view about the Western the economy structure. I think there are some legitimate, legitimate. So you see, this gap not only morally wrong, but practically also this is a source of problem. So we have to think seriously about how to change this gap. And then within one nation, the poorer people, poorer section, and the richer the gap. That also is a very unfortunate situation. That also is the one factor of more crimes, things like that. So therefore, that also one very, very serious matter. Then the ecology, you know very well, now there's also, this is very, very serious. You see, it is now question of the survival of entire world. So then all these matter related with human population. Now, from the Buddhist viewpoint, we consider each human life is precious. Therefore, from that viewpoint, on individual level, it is better to avoid birth control. However, now today, reality is the precious life now become too much. So the not question of individual precious life, now question of entire precious life now facing problem. So logically, we have to implement birth control. That's very important. So you see, these currently in Kasura often you see come in my mind. So here you see the many students of Kasura, human being, which can be important role in future. So I wanted to share with you. So these are the point which I want to mention. Then another thing, let me say, okay. The United Nations, the rule of United Nations now become greater and greater. That's good, very good. But sometimes, you see, the present United Nations structure, you see, now a few decades ago, you see, it's set. So, you see, naturally, you see, there are, I think, certain modification or certain change. That whole, you see, the structure should be more,
it does not reflect the reality of current political situation, and more democratization is needed.
More is democratization. Then another thing, the President is the United Nations. Of course, they're representative of government, various government. So as a government, I mean, naturally, they have to concern more about their own nation's interest. So perhaps that's just an idea, just a dream, just dream. You see, since some time ago, you see, I feel if we can create another world body, which not representing government, but you see, truly, you see, the representing of humanity. You see, from different fields, from among the scientists or thinkers, or you see some retired politician maybe. So you see some you see, so all sorts of, you see, irrespective, you see, what background. But truly, you see, thinking about humanity, not thinking this continent or this nation or that nation, not that way. Or this ideology, this religion, that religion, no. Simply, you see, concern about a human being, about our future. You see, such people, you see, gathering some kind of, you see, the body, which can, their voice can be checked. I mean, their voice
can serve as a kind of a check against the United Nations.
Like the United Nations, the representative of the government. You see, if there are some, you see, due to national interest, or due to ideology, something become difficult, then you see that true representative of humanity, their voice should have more influence on such things. So that's just my dream. Whether it's relevant or not, I don't know. Then, here I think, then another, you see, thing which I always is making effort is harmony among the different religious traditions. I'm quite sure if we really knows what the value of other major world religious tradition, then there is strong basis for development of mutual respect, mutual understanding. So once we develop such things, the genuine harmony automatically come develop. So the regular contact between different religious traditions. And here you see two ways, or three ways. One, the meeting between scholars of different religious traditions, exchange in academic way. Then second, that's more important, the religious, the follower of different religious tradition who are sincerely practicing, and as a result of practice, some deeper spiritual experience who have some deeper spiritual experience have. Now, such people, you see, they interact. Certainly, you see, can develop genuine, strong, forceful mutual understanding. So that's one way. Then third, on with these, you see, the groundwork, then meeting leaders, religious leaders, you see, and eventually, you see, should develop some kind of genuine pluralism in the religious tradition. So that, I think, they very possible now already. You see, these, according many signs now, like you see the Assisi, the meeting, you see, and also last year at Chicago, the World Parliament of Religious, you see, meetings. These are the clear sign of now tendency going that way. So that's, so you see, I think that those religious followers, you see, we have additional responsibility to build genuine harmony among the religious tradition. So this is one thing. So that's about the, that I'm done. That's about my, my talk. So if we implement with self-confidence and with sense of involvement, then that's, I think, the best way of reminding our previous heroes. If we just see the praising few words and not doing nothing, it is not genuine.
That's not a genuine tribute to the memory of these past masters.
So, if you agree, please try to implement these ideas. If you feel not much relevant, then just forget it, no problem. Thank you. At the last, that jemate tadunde ini ada pose mi kasore 자발랍지 중심 디딩 아주 제전시하다. 야 대단 첩지 뭐냐 다는지 대대 둘이야지 동행 양바즈 동행 양바즈로 나가는지 다다이네지 동행 영십은 드저차디 아주 찬수시하다리야 까마지가 사는 수입니다.
In conclusion, I would like to ask all of you to join together in a moment of silence as a mark of respect to the memory of great humanitarian heroes like Raoul Wallenberg, and also to remember many human beings who have suffered in the past and who continues to suffer. Please observe a moment of silence together.
Thank you.
Tony. We're indebted to His Holiness for making this a very special evening. I'd also like to express our gratitude to all of you that have attended. I'd like to ask if you'd remain in your seats for just a moment while His Holiness leaves the stage. Thank you very much.